Welcome to the Taylor Made Tasty podcast. I'm Taylor, retired serial quitter turned goal boss coach, speaker, and consultant. I believe a beautiful life starts with a beautiful mindset. Join me as we amplify confidence, resilience, and actionable tools on the road to quit quitting on you and your vision. You are worthy of your goals, so let's go get there. Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Taylor Made Tasty, the podcast. Today we are going to be talking about who is benefiting from your self-doubt. How do you define self-doubt when it comes to goal setting? What are the root causes of self-doubt? And who is actually benefiting from you having self-doubt? We are going to discuss this today with our guest. Saskia Seeling is a meditation and empowerment coach who helps people pleasers create a joyful and confident life on their own terms. After working for years as a banker in Europe, she quit her life in Germany and traveled around the world in search of what a good life would look like. After settling in New Zealand, she spent almost 4 years seeking out different certifications and a whole lot of experience in modalities like yoga, meditation, and subconscious practices. She's working with clients from all over the world using her signature mix of coaching and meditation. Please help me in welcoming Saskia. If you're anything like me, after I have dinner, I get so excited about picking my dessert. Being on an intentional wellness journey means I choose wisely when it comes to my sweet treats. That's why I love grabbing a bag of Pink Panda candy. Each bag contains 50 grams of candy with only 2 grams of sugar. And at 90 calories, it fits perfectly with my wellness goals. Pink Panda candy offers 3 flavors: Astro Blasters, Treasure Chews, and my personal favorite, Peachy Hearts. They are vegan, gluten-free, and made in the US. Head to pinkpandacandy.com and use code TaylorPanda10 for 10% off. Pink Panda Candy. Don't sweat the sweet stuff. Hi, Saskia. I am so glad to have you on the show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Such an honor to be here.
Okay, so typically I work with women who are tired of their own BS, of the all or nothing mentality and people pleasing, feeling unworthy. We come together to set goals that build the muscle of worthiness, confidence, and empowerment. And I'll speak for myself because I know even when you have a strategy for a goal, self-doubt creeps in. So first, I want us to kind of define, what is self-doubt? Let's define self-doubt.
Sure, yeah. So first I want to say that self-doubt is perfectly normal and our minds are actually kind of designed to give us some self-doubt. So often we're struggling with basically finding happiness. I think that's like an overarching theme of whatever we do. But we don't realize that our minds actually aren't really designed to provide us with happiness, but with safety. And so when you look at it that way, self-doubt makes much more sense because it's really a reevaluation of what you're about to do, and basically you asking yourself, can you really do that? Can you really do that? And your mind just trying to make sure over and over again that you can actually do it. And obviously we don't know the future, and the problem is that our minds also only go off of past experiences. So that's why that self-doubt is so often wrong and keeps us small. But it comes from a very natural place and from a very reasonable place, I would say, because when you look at, where humans came from in the very, very past thousands of years ago, it was pretty important that our minds were really on the lookout for any kind of danger and were always doubting ourselves so that we didn't make any I want to say stupid decisions like go out into the wild alone and meet a tiger or, That kind of thing. And the problem is our minds haven't changed really all that much since then. So that's why we're now experiencing self-doubt in degrees that aren't really helpful for us as modern human beings.
Yes. So and that makes it almost a little bit more complicated, where self-doubt comes in and it's sort of helpful. It can be helpful in like keeping us safe, right? If there's actual doubt that should be creeping in a scenario that could be unsafe, right? Versus the self-doubt that comes in and is questioning our ability and our capabilities to hit a certain goal or to go for something that feels outside of ourselves, right? So when it comes to goal setting, what are some of the root causes of self-doubt?
Yeah, so it's past experiences. So the mind creates these patterns basically that it goes off of. So for example, just to start with a really simple example, at one time in your life you learned that when you stand at a street and you want to cross that street and you see a car coming, that you don't cross the street basically. So it's now we're not really looking at the situation as a whole, but the mind created this pattern of, I see a car, I'm not crossing the street. And that's a simple example, but that's really how the mind works in so many other situations as well. So for example, maybe you didn't reach a goal when you were really young, or maybe when you were really young, you got that perception that you're not worthy, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not made for big things, however you define that. And so that's the mind's kind of default mode. And so when you're now approaching something new, like setting a bold new goal and taking the steps towards that, then the mind is still often caught up in like these past experiences and tries to predict the future from what we experienced in the past. Excuse me. Yeah, so that's why we're so often stuck in the same loop over and over again. And no matter how, great or realistic our goals are, sometimes we still don't get there. We still don't follow the steps, end up procrastinating or just doing all the things but not reaching our goals. And not because we're not worthy, but because the mind has this pattern of believing it's safer not to even try.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're in that vicious circle and in that pattern, like what are simple things to sort of break you out of that?
Well, I think the answer is twofold. So one is really practice. I definitely see that in myself, and also when I work with clients, we all have these voices inside of us, and there's almost one tonality to a voice that is like that fear-based voice, that is that voice that really doesn't belong to us. Maybe it almost sounds like a parent or someone from like our childhood. And then there's this voice that often feels much quieter and much calmer. And that is really our intuition, our self-trust, and that place that we can actually go off of. So it's, I think, a practice of over time, just really sharpening your awareness to notice, which voice is acting when, and to distinguish between the two. And then also in the moment, just to make sure that you stay really grounded, that you stay in a rest and digest nervous system response, because so often when we set bold goals, we basically blow ourselves out into a stress response. And the problem is when you're in a stress response, you can't really distinguish between what is the voice I can trust, what is the voice of my past, basically. So learning techniques that can help you in the moment, and also techniques that just sharpen your awareness overall.
Yeah. Can you expand on, I've never heard of this concept. Would it rest and What was it?
Yeah, rest and digest. So basically,
Yes.
our nervous system has two modes. That's rest and digest, and then that's fight or flight. And again, our nervous system was designed like thousands of years ago, and it's still the same. And so I always like to imagine the nervous system being designed for that very situation where we used to live in caves, and then you went out into the wild and you encountered tigers and bears and wild animals that would kill you. And so, that's really what the nervous system was made for. It was made for us being in a calm state that allows us to make decisions, to rest, and digest, really. That's also why your digestion is often messed up if you don't spend enough time in this more calmer state. And to just live life kind of normally. And then we have this fight and flight response, and that helps us in an actual stressful situation to decide in an instant, okay, should I fight this tiger or should I flee the scene, because otherwise I'll die. And so that's just general how the nervous system is designed. However, because it didn't change, we're in a bit of trouble in the modern world, because the nervous system and the mind can't really distinguish between a tiger and your boss giving you a to-do list. And so that's why we spend so much time as modern humans in this stress cycle and in this fight or flight response. Because we're originally just designed to spend really a couple of minutes in a fight or flight response, and then the rest of the day in a rest and digest mode. But through phones, social media, news cycles, all of the things, we're spending pretty much all of our days in this fight or flight response, and that's what makes it so hard to really get to know ourselves and to learn to distinguish what we truly want, and to kind of find some distance between ourselves and these fears that are just totally natural to arise, especially when our body, our mind thinks that we're in a dangerous situation.
Yeah, I love that powerful tool, rest and digest. And I feel like that's such an easy thing that we can bring up, say to ourselves, not in application easy, but an easy trigger to like get your mind to understand, okay, am I in fight or flight? And can I bring it back to rest and digest and start to build that self-trust to overcome the self-doubt? So I love that. I've never heard of that before. That's powerful. And I also appreciate that you created a baseline when you said that the feeling of self-doubt is to be human, basically. And we feel it, whether you're a blockbuster movie star walking onto a set for the 100th time, or you are presenting your first speech or sales pitch or whatever it is, like we all feel it regardless of our abilities, right? And it's just like, that's what makes us human. And the downside to that is that the world knows that we feel that. And they can tend to prey on our self-doubt. So what are some of the tools around living in a world that's making really big money off of our self-doubt?
Yeah, so start to learn to distinguish between the self-doubt that is healthy and the self-doubt that has nothing to do with you at the end of the day. So I love to bring up, obviously the beauty industry, I think, is such a big part of that. And, I love to put on some lipstick, and I don't want to say that everything in the beauty industry is bad. However, you have to watch yourself, like from what kind of place are you approaching a situation? Are you approaching a situation from that sense of, well, I'm inherently not good enough, like I don't look good enough, my body is not good enough? Are you starting from this place and then seeking something outside of you that is making you better, so to say? or are you inherently believing in your self-worth and in your enoughness, and then just trying to basically add on to that. And so I think that's a lifelong journey, because especially when you identify as a woman or you grew up as a woman, that's even harder, because we've been surrounded with like so many stories of us not being good enough, not ever being as good as a man, basically. I mean, probably no one said that anymore, even when we were children, but it's still implicit, you know. Why else aren't there more female CEOs and all of these stories, you know? And so it's a lifelong journey for sure to see the picture more clearly and to notice where you doubt yourself because society profits off of it, or because it's just the way it has been for really hundreds of years. And where is there a bit of self-doubt just to, you know, keep yourself in check. And sorry, I feel like I ventured off the question.
No, that's good. So what you bring up a good point when you're saying, you know, sort of combating them selling us all the things in the world to overcome that self-doubt, when really it comes to the self-awareness piece, right? And so we have to be self-aware when we're giving into buying something based upon feeling less than, or is it a tool to our life versus, is this going to make me feel X, Y, and Z once I have it, or I look this way, or I own this thing, or this handbag, or this car, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you'll never get there at the end of the day. There's always something more that is missing, you know, because it's this internal pattern, that mental pattern we talked about earlier. As long as you go off of that, there's nothing that will ever be enough. No makeup, no handbag, no car, no house, no amount of money also, because the pattern is still there, and you will always find proof that pattern is true, basically. And so it's really about developing that inner awareness, and then also consciously choosing to shift that pattern over time.
Yeah, definitely. And along those same lines of the self-awareness, when it comes to goal setting, I love to ask myself the question, what is my part in reaching this goal? Like, what are my controllables? What hand do I have in this goal, and what is out of my control? And so in what ways is self-doubt within our control?
Yeah, so I think just developing this greater sense of awareness and getting to know ourselves better, really, and just sitting down every day. I mean, obviously that depends how big of a struggle self-doubt is for you, but if it's an actual thing, like sit down every day and notice how it influences your life and how it basically tells you lies, because at the end of the day, that's what it does, is that it tells you lies that you believe to be true. And so that takes practice to learn to notice these lies and to learn to no longer buy into them. Yeah, so that's really a practice of getting to know yourself better, getting to know your patterns better, because you will notice once you start that kind of work, there's always the same thing coming up. So for example, in terms of goal setting, you'll know that sometimes you do everything to reach a goal, and then something happens and you don't reach that goal in the time frame that you wanted to reach it. And then your self-doubt probably starts telling you stories like, well, this is because you're not good enough, or this is because you don't deserve it, or because you took too big of a leap, or, you know, whatever. Whereas it was something that wasn't in your control at all. And so it's a practice of, especially in these moments, to get really close with these super uncomfortable thoughts, because I think we all struggle to a degree to even admit to ourselves that we think about ourselves that we're not good enough, or that we reached for too high of a goal, or all of these things. But it's really about getting very honest with ourselves, and then from that place evaluating, okay, does it really mean that, or is there really a thought that is a lie at the end of the day that I'm living off of here at the moment, and what's a better thought really to live from?
Yeah. No wonder we're exhausted all the time and distracted, because we're constantly combating the lies. So not only do we have to combat them, we are then almost driven to prove them wrong, right? Like, oh, okay, self-doubt, all these lies are coming in that I'm not capable, that I'm not worthy, that, this isn't for me. I don't have enough money for this. I don't have enough time for this. I'm too fat for this. All these things coming in, and we have to get over the lie, but then also empower ourselves to take action once that self-doubt, can be pushed to the side a bit. So I think that's why we're all just exhausted all the time.
I agree. And because I think also it is a lot of work, like that kind of inner work. And yet at the same time, when you don't do it, you often throw yourself in other kind of work, like when you just busy yourself thinking, oh, I just need to do this little thing to reach a goal. Like I definitely know that from my past, like just running a business, so often in the past, I've busied myself with tasks like, oh, I just have to make this website piece more beautiful, or like all of the small things. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter at all. Like if people want to work with you, or want to purchase your product, they're going to do it, and it's not going to change anything. And so by learning to maybe let that kind of busyness go a little bit, and instead invest your energy into the inner work, will, I think, at the end of the day, definitely make you more calm or calmer. I don't want to say that you're going to be calm all the time. And you're just going to use the limited amount of energy at the end of the day that you have more wisely, I would say.
Yes, that's so true. And I think specifically with goal setting, we can get stuck in that planning, like the over planning. Oh my gosh, I have to have the perfect plan in place, like you were saying, the perfect website in place before I launch or before I sell this thing. And we get stuck in that, and then that feels exhausting, and you're like, wait, I haven't even I haven't even actually taken action here, and I'm already feeling like overwhelmed. And that can be paralyzing, where we just need to like break it down, figure out what is the inner work that I need to do, stay in my lane, what is it that I have to do, not what everyone else is doing, and just do the work.
Yes, 100%. Because then it flows so much more easily. But, that's a practice also, to stay in your lane and to not look at other people, because sometimes that, like, it induces often self-doubt, but it comes from a place of looking for reassurance, or seeking that sense of safety really at the end of the day. So that's definitely a practice to have that self-trust that you can stay in your own lane.
Yes, absolutely. So in my coaching, I love to look at what we see as flaws and be disruptive, to look at them as something that can be empowering, which really begs the question, can self-doubt ever be a good thing? Like, are there instances that self-doubt can creep in as sort of an ally in your life or in your mindset?
Yes, I think of two instances really. So of course, it's a good way to check yourself. And you only know yourself, at the end of the day. But you could be a person that is really outgoing and you put yourself out there without checking your work, or checking your wording, or whatever it is that you do. And in these instances, I think self-doubt can be great in the sense of giving you a moment to check back in with how you actually want to show up, what you actually want to do. So just as this sense of re-evaluating yourself, not re-evaluating the worthiness that you carry as a person, but just is this what I want to put out, for example, really as good as I want it to be when I present work? Or is this step that I'm doing towards reaching my goal actually good enough to reach the goal? And just using it as a tool that doesn't say anything about your inherent worthiness, but just as a checkpoint, really, to make sure that you are actually reaching your goal with that step, or that it actually is supporting you in doing what you want to achieve. So that's like the one part. And then I think the second part is that inner work. Like, it's painful, but also when you don't look at it, it's going to direct your life forever. And so that's really the power, I think, of self-doubt, is that it can show us our deepest wounds that still direct our life today. And as long as we don't look at them, and as long as we don't change them, they will continue to direct our life for the rest of our days. And so there's a chance in it, for sure, like a chance to get to know ourselves better and to empower us to a degree that achieving something in the outside world could never do to us.
Yeah. And I think where a bit of the magic lives here is in when that reflection happens, that we release judgment. That it's strictly from, let's say, a data standpoint of, okay, this self-doubt came in, I questioned my ability on this goal or this task, or, and what did I learn from that I can take forward, versus sitting in it and feeling judgmental of our abilities or my performance in that instance, or I quit on this, or I couldn't achieve this one goal. That we have to just like release the judgment when we're in this practice of looking at self-doubt from a reflection piece of how can I progress forward.
Yeah, and I think also it just helps us be a better human, when I can say that like this, but because you said the word judgment, really that is self-doubt, like judging ourselves, but it so often also shows up in the way we interact with other people. So having like that greater understanding for ourselves and who we are and our story, and that our worthiness really is not a product of our story, and the more understanding we also have for other people and how they interact with us, which I think is great also for achieving goals, because as you said, like some parts of the goals that we set for ourselves we have no control over, because we need other people to act or interact with us. And so finding that greater understanding for ourselves also provides that greater understanding for others, and just makes us, I think, in return also more peaceful in ourselves, because we don't think that person is set out to get me, or all of these disempowering thoughts at the end of the day, and that sometimes hinder us from reaching our goals. But it's really a mere noticing what's actually true, like this person hasn't fulfilled their promise, for example. It's not about me, they have their own story, and I can just move forward and find another way to take this next step that I need to take to reach my goal.
Yes, I love worthiness apart from your story. Like the concept, that we are born worthy. And I love how you said that, worthiness apart from your story. So it's sometimes we have to be intentional about dividing those two things, because I think so often we do attach our worthiness to accomplishments or our story or our goals or what we have done or what we haven't done or the action we've taken or the inaction. And so, yes, worthiness apart from your story. That is so beautifully said. I love it. So we really thrive on actionable tools at TaylorMade Tasty, and I want to know if you have, like, what is your greatest, you use it, you teach it, greatest simple tool that we can actively shift our mindset from self-doubt to confidence?
Yeah, so if it's just one tool that you're asking of me, I would love to share a journaling technique. So I love journaling. I do it myself every day, share it with clients. I find it really powerful. And so there's this one technique that I think is really helpful, especially when you're in the process of reaching a goal. And so basically it's a 3-part technique. You start by writing down a page or half a page, whatever suits you, of things that are really good. So just kind of like an easing into it, like a page of gratitude or things that you're really proud of in your life, things like that really get you in a good mood, basically. And then the second part, for the same length, like a page or half, you're going to write down what a situation needs. So for example, you're on this journey towards a goal, and then this one step didn't work because of XYZ. And so you would basically write down XYZ happened and I'm making it mean that. And then you can write all the things down. And, probably something like, because I'm not worthy of reaching that goal, or because the world is set out to get me, or all of these thoughts that are sometimes part of that self-doubt will probably come up if you're honest with yourself. And that's definitely the hardest part, to actually keep writing even when these really nasty thoughts come out. But yeah, once you finish that page, start a new page, and then start to basically rewrite this. So maybe you write something down like, I decide that XYZ means instead that. So for example, you didn't reach that step that you needed to reach your goal. Maybe it means that you have to get creative and find another step that helps you reach your goal. Maybe it means that you can share another gift, or you can share another one of your services. Maybe it means that you can find other people. Maybe it means that you learned the truth about this other person. Maybe it means that you learn to trust yourself more. There's always something, or I don't want to say there's always something good, because I think that's maybe a bit bypassing, but quite often, especially when we come from that place of self-doubt, there's also another story, and it's really a matter of uncovering it. And so that's basically the whole journaling technique. So you start with something good, then you go into the dark bits, and then you finish by kind of turning the dark bits over into some lighter bits. And I want to say that this might feel strange in the beginning, and it's perfectly normal. Just because, in the beginning it might feel like, well, I'm writing down this thought, but I'm actually not believing it myself yet. But the way we change our minds is really about practice and time and putting in the work. So I personally sit down and do this every day before I start my work day. And now it's just so much more easier, because you will notice, like, it's always the same thoughts and the same beliefs that creep up. And they not just creep up in the journaling, they creep up in your life really in general. And so the more you practice using other thoughts instead of the limiting beliefs, the more easier it is to also use these new thoughts in your real life. So when you, for example, in your journaling, you uncover that you believe that you're not good enough, and then you basically use I am good enough as like the new thought instead. And you just write that down in your journal, and at that stage you might be like, I don't know if that, does anything. But then later in the day, you find yourself in a situation where you're acting from this place of I'm not good enough. And then you can be like, oh, actually, I've realized this is not true. What if I acted from this place of I am good enough? How would that situation change here? And so that's how it slowly but steadily influences your life and really shifts your experience throughout all of life. And I think especially when you look at setting goals and reaching these goals, because failure is often something that, or fear of failure is often something I think that keeps us from even trying. And so when you have a way to combat failure, if you want to say so, that makes it much less scary, and it's just another step on your way to the goal.
I like that a lot. There's this concept in business that when you're having tough conversations, you sandwich the bad. So you start with, let's say you're having a conversation with an employee who's underperforming or something. You start with the good, and then you go into the tough conversation part, and then you end with the good again. So it's sort of that same concept, but having that conversation with yourself. So you're starting with the good, you're going into the, like you said, the dark bits, and then you're ending with the good or the redirection, or how can I say this differently? How can I approach this differently? And then take action on that thought or practice. So I really like that. That's a great tool. I have loved everything that you've said, and really thinking a little bit differently about self-doubt and how we can use it to our advantage, but also combat it in situations where we know that it's creeping in for the wrong reasons. So thank you. Can you share with our listeners how they can connect with you and the latest and greatest in your business?
Sure, thank you. So I'm available for one-on-one sessions. I usually work with people pleasers who want to create a more joyful life on their own terms. And I'm really intently about on their own terms, because I think often in the coaching world in general, or life in general, we have a certain idea of what a good life looks like, but I truly believe that we all have different ideas and different values about a good life, and that not every life suits every person. So I work with people a lot on uncovering these limiting beliefs that hold us from even finding out what our own box looks like, really, and just mastering courage to step out of the box that they're in at the moment, and to even just figure out what brings them joy, because I think that's a journey in itself, to figure out what joy even means to us. So work one-on-one with people on that. And also for membership, just to make the work a bit more accessible, where I share basically over the whole year tools to make yourself more of a priority in your life.
Love that. Okay. And then on social media, where can we find you?
I spend probably most of my time on Instagram. So you can just find me under my full name, Saskia Seeling. And I share lots of bits from my day-to-day life, and also lots of my work, lots of tools, because I'm also a meditation teacher. And so I love sharing little bits and pieces about that as well. And you can find a lot of that in my social media.
Thank you so much, Saskia. We all appreciate everything that you gave today and giving us little tidbits to go into our life with a little bit less self-doubt. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right, y'all, it's time for the quote of the episode, and this quote is from Michael Jordan. The quote is, "Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. Figure out how to climb it, go through it, or work around it. Take that into your week, your month, maybe even your year, and decide what goals in your life that you need to figure out how to climb, go through it, or work around it through your self-doubt. As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in my community. I'm so glad you showed up today, and let's go get there. Look at you, crushing it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Tailor Made Tasty podcast. My hope is you always leave with a takeaway to implement in your own goal-crushing journey. I would love if you could take a moment to leave a review. And if you're looking for a community of goal boss badasses just like you, be sure to check out tailormadetasty.com/membership.